Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. My name is Matt Morris. We are live right now on Rumble as well as on YouTube at Matt Morris TV. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have some absolutely breaking news. Well, actually, we have a lot of absolutely breaking news. You see, perhaps the biggest story of the day is this. Several of our allies from around the world, predominantly Europe, have actually just caved. No, let's be polite. They have agreed to meet President Trump's requests, finally agreeing to help the United States of America open up the Strait of Hormuz. Originally, they were a little bit reluctant. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want any part in it. Well, as of this morning, they have all capitulated. Agreed. They have agreed, respectfully, to help the United States open up the Hormuz. We're going to break down that entire story. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has just earlier this morning said that once again, the United States military is going to escalate our bombing campaign against the Iranian regime, promising that today, as in now, soon, the United States military is going to set yet another brand new record for the number of targeted strikes carried out in a 24-hour window. We're going to talk about that. Also, a little bit of drama today, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get a little bit controversial today. It seems as if over the last 24 hours or so, there has been a little bit of a conflict between the Trump administration over here in the United States of America and the Benjamin Netanyahu administration over there in Israel. A disagreement in strategic approach, if you will, that hopefully it seems like this disagreement has been resolved, but we're going to break it down nonetheless because it is a big deal and everybody's been talking about it. We're also getting reports that, I kid you not, the Iranian regime is actually on the brink, on the cusp of complete and total collapse. Like I said, I kid you not. And that defections inside of the Iranian regime are right now pretty much happening nonstop. So we have a lot to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to start today's show off with the slightly bad / controversial news. Then we're going to work our way towards the insanely good, absolutely stellar news. So today is going to be a little bit of a roller coaster. Ladies and gentlemen, bear with me. Thank you all very much for tuning in on this lovely Thursday. Make sure, if you have not already, to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. I appreciate it a lot over here on Rumble as well as on YouTube, folks. Thank you all for tuning in. Well, why don't we just go ahead and kick off today's broadcast? Like I said, we're going to start off with the maybe slightly bad / controversial news. Okay, folks, must be about 30 hours ago now, 28 hours ago, the Israeli Air Force carried out what can only be described as a very controversial airstrike. In fact, we talked about this yesterday evening on last night's broadcast. The Israeli Air Force carried out a very controversial airstrike on the South Pars onshore. It's a gas field. It's an Iranian gas field that is also owned in part by the Qataris. So the Israelis blew half of this thing up. Well, not quite half of it. I think actually around 13% of the gas output has been halted because of these Israeli airstrikes. But they dropped a couple bombs on this thing. Well, boy, howdy. I will tell you what. The Iranian regime, they were not happy about that. In fact, they engaged in a series of retaliatory strikes following the Israeli Air Force strike on the South Pars onshore units. Right here, this is this blue explosion. So the Iranians, in a fit of rage, they retaliated and they fired ballistic missiles towards a refinery in Saudi Arabia, towards an oil industrial city in Qatar. They blew up, in part, a refinery in Kuwait, and they fired ballistic missiles and suicide drones down to the United Arab Emirates, in part damaging this Habshan gas facility. And so we're going to talk about what the impacts of this or the consequences were of this retaliatory strike that was sort of kicked off because Israel blew up this gas field in Iran. Now, let's start breaking this stuff down. Iran's attacks on Qatar wiped out 17% of Qatar's liquefied natural gas capacity for up to 5 years. You guys know I'm not a supporter of the Iranian regime. To some degree, this was a successful attack. The Iranian regime undeniably inflicted damage. They did. Their retaliatory strike that they carried out probably 18 hours ago now, we were talking about this last night, they did some damage. It's an undeniable fact. So they wiped out 17% of Qatar's liquefied natural gas capacity for up to 5 years. It takes 5 years to rebuild this stuff. It's all very complex, causing an estimated $20 billion in lost annual revenue. Well, wait a minute, $20 billion, that's annual. You need to multiply that by 5 because it's going to take 5 years to rebuild this. This strike carried out by the Iranian regime last night, this retaliatory strike, did to the Qataris what could be $100 billion worth of damage by nature of damaging this Qatari liquefied natural gas facility. So, big strike, big damage, undeniable. What's more, European natural gas prices, as a response, have surged over 30%. Tough day to be a European after these Iranian retaliatory strikes against Qatar's largest LNG facility, which is ultimately responsible for 20% of the global supply of liquefied natural gas. So who here is in Europe? I'm sure the Europeans are well aware of this. Shout out the European members of the audience. European natural gas prices have surged 30%. Now, I just checked, I think it's actually up to 32%. It keeps on going up. So, not good, to say the least, not good. Donald Trump, this is where we get to a little bit of the drama, folks. Okay, bear with me. Donald Trump, late last night, like middle of the night, issued a response to this Israeli attack on the Iranian gas field and also the Iranian retaliatory attack on all of their Arabian neighbors. President Trump issued a very large response. So we're going to read through what President Trump said, and then I'm going to give you my personal opinion. We're going to get a little bit controversial here today. Let's see what President Trump had to say about this. He said, and I quote, "Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as the South Pars gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack." Right here, this is a big deal that he just said that. Keep that in mind. President Trump says the United States had no idea about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did it have any idea that this Israeli attack was going to happen. Unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack, and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's liquefied natural gas facility. No, he says in all caps, caps lock, no more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case, Qatar. In which instance, the United States of America, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entire South Pars field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. I do not want to authorize this level of violence and destruction because of the long-term implications that it will have on the future of Iran. But if Qatar's LNG, liquefied natural gas, is attacked again, I will not hesitate to do so. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So before I really start breaking this down, there's another component here. We also got the confirmation from Trump himself. There's video of this. Trump said that following this post, he had a phone call with Bibi Netanyahu, where he told Trump said this. This is not my speculation. We know this. Trump had a phone call shortly after making this post with Mr. Bibi Netanyahu, during which he told Netanyahu, stop attacking Iranian energy infrastructure. Stop. That is what Trump told Netanyahu. We have the confirmation of that. So Trump was not happy about this. He was not happy about this Israeli airstrike on energy infrastructure at all. He's not happy about this at all. Now, let's start breaking this down. President Trump, he said, first off, the United States had no idea that this attack was going to get carried out. Israel did this on their own. The United States had no idea. What's more, he says, there will be no more attacks made by Israel of this sort, President Trump says. Sort of saying that he is in charge of Israel. Trump is saying, I told Israel to stop, and they are going to stop. They will not do it again. Trump is saying, I'm in charge, is what he's saying. Third, he goes on to say, however, Iran, if you F around, if you touch Qatar again, if you carry out a strike against Qatar like this again, we are going to bomb the living shit out of you, with or without the consent of Israel, because I'm Donald Trump, the commander-in-chief, and I do what I want. With or without the consent of anyone else. I'm President Donald J. Trump, is what he says. And so Trump was very unhappy. I'm going to give you my opinion here. I want to put all of this into context, and this is where I'll give you my opinion, a little bit controversial. Make sure to hit this like button. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the show. I want to zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. I actually posted this on Twitter this morning. You might have already seen my opinion, but I'll go through this again. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, on two separate occasions over the last 2 weeks, President Trump has publicly said on video, if you don't believe me, I could pull the videos up and show you. He has said that if not for the direct involvement of the United States of America against Iran, that Israel would not exist right now. President Trump said, and I quote, Israel would have been obliterated by nuclear weapons. He also said that, quote, this is from President Trump, Israel would have been wiped out by nuclear weapons. These are direct quotes from President Trump over the last 2 weeks. He said these on video. I can play the videos for you if you want. However, in this very same time frame, the last 2 or 2.5 weeks, we have now also seen Israel attack, without giving the United States or President Trump a heads up, the Iranian Shah-Ray oil refinery on March 7th. We covered that on this show. And now yesterday, or a day and a half ago, the Israelis attacked the Iranian South Pars natural gas field on March 18th. This most recent attack on the South Pars gas field bothered President Trump so much that he felt compelled to make the Truth Social post that we just read through, in which he said, 1, we did not know that Israel was going to do that. 2, I have told Israel, stop doing that. And so here is my controversial opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Where is the deference? Where is the gratitude? Where is the respect from Israel? As President Trump has said multiple times now, Israel quite literally would not exist. They would have been annihilated in a nuclear holocaust if not for direct U.S. involvement. We saved them. They would not exist if not for us. Trump has said that 2 times in the last 2 weeks. And the narrative is that Iran has all these ballistic missiles. they can make a nuclear bomb, and they were pointing them at Israel that they were about to attack imminently. So once again, where's the deference? Where is the gratitude? Why is Israel cutting President Trump and the United States of America out of the decision-making process and bombing civilian energy infrastructure in Iran without getting the explicit green light from President Trump? What is going on here? So here's my personal opinion. I'm not a fan of that at all whatsoever. I'm not one of these like unhinged Israel, Israel haters. But this is an ongoing military operation and strategy must be considered. We are supposed to be co-collaborators. In fact, Israel in this operation ought to be subordinate to the United States and subordinate to the commander-in-chief, the President Donald Trump. Instead, after we saved them, after Trump saved them from nuclear annihilation, they are repaying that by cutting Trump out of the picture. So as an American who has sole and exclusive loyalty to America and our president, personally, I'm not exactly so happy about that, and I think that this is incredibly concerning. But anyway, we're going to keep on getting on with the show because we have a lot more to talk about. The situation evolves. There's a lot more to talk about today. Like I said, we're going to talk about the dramatic news, the controversial news. Then we're going to move on to the really good, excellent news. So let's keep on working through the show. Ladies and gentlemen, in response, this morning, a couple hours ago, the Iranian regime actually struck Israel's largest oil refinery as well in Haifa. This just happened maybe 2 or 3 hours ago. So not only did the Iranians successfully strike in response to this Israeli strike, they struck energy infrastructure in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, and in the United Arab Emirates. Also, as of about 3 hours ago, the Iranians struck Israel's largest oil refinery in Haifa, blowing it up, landing a ballistic missile. Seems to be a ballistic missile strike right in the middle of that damn Israeli oil refinery. So they were able to successfully retaliate to some degree. It's undeniable. The Iranian Foreign Minister, Araghchi, issued a statement on Iran's recent attacks on energy infrastructure in the region. He said, and I quote, "Our response to Israel's attack on our infrastructure employed a fraction of our total power. The only reason for restraint was respect for requested de-escalation." So, the Iranians, they love to talk a big game. They're yapping up a storm. This is the Iranian Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi. We've heard from him a lot. He says that we actually restrained ourselves with our retaliation. He says we could have gone way harder. We could have retaliated in a way more harsher way, but we held ourselves back. Consider this a warning, is what he says. Now, I have a feeling this is probably not the case. We all know that the Iranian capacity to fire ballistic missiles and drones, we all know that this is severely diminished. I would imagine that they probably did everything they could. We know that the Iranians, they talk a big game, to say the least. Now, I want to break down something that we have seen over the last couple of days as a consequence of all of this attack, these ongoing attacks going both ways now on energy infrastructure, alongside the semi-shutdown of the Hormuz. The oil market, the global oil market, has now completely fragmented. Oil is now trading at $150 per barrel in Asia. In Asia, up there, that's that blue line up there. Whereas over here in the United States, oil is now trading at $100 per barrel. There's a fragmentation of the oil market, okay? We are energy independent here in the United States. In fact, we are so energy independent that we are producing an energy surplus. We are still exporting oil. 10% of the oil that we suck up out of the ground, we actually export it. We sell it on the global market. Other countries that are not as energy independent as we are, they can't produce energy or oil domestically. They have to import it. They've got to buy it. Well, oil for them getting very expensive, very, very expensive. We have a little bit of a breakdown here. This is absolutely insane. the world is quite literally facing what appears to be the largest energy crisis in history. Perhaps. U.S. crude oil futures are now trading at a $20 per barrel discount to Brent, also one of the largest on record. As the U.S. increases production and taps into reserves, the European Union is facing a full-out energy crisis. This European Union full-out energy crisis is perhaps influencing why the European Union has, well, not the European Union, but several European Union member nations have agreed to help us blast open the Hormuz, which is something we're going to be talking a lot about here in just a moment. European natural gas prices are up another 30% today for the reasons we just discussed, and physical crude oil prices in Oman are elsewhere trading at $150 a barrel. For us, they're about $100. In other words, the gap between Omani and U.S. oil prices now stand about 70% different. It has become so bad for Europe that the market is now pricing in 2 interest rate hikes in Europe in 2026, even as the U.S. removes some sanctions on Russian oil. So, folks, things are escalating here, but now we're going to talk about the news. Actually, we're going to talk about the Hormuz. Ladies and gentlemen, after initially resisting President Trump's request to help open up the Strait of Hormuz, now we are actually seeing several of our allies from around the world, predominantly Europe, however, finally agree to sign on and help get the Strait of Hormuz reopened. Probably because they're starting to feel some of the rising energy costs, but nonetheless, they have agreed to finally help out after initially resisting. Take a look at this here, folks. Breaking news. 6 American allies from around the world, including Japan, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands, have just pledged their support to secure the Strait of Hormuz shipping lanes. I've got some more information. In a joint statement, these aforementioned nations said together collectively, they said, and I quote, "We express our readiness to contribute to appropriate efforts to ensure safe passage through the Hormuz." Ladies and gentlemen, after initially resisting a lot of these countries, they said, I don't want anything to do with it 4 or 5 days ago. Now they have capitulated to President Trump. I'm sorry. I mean, they have agreed. We're going to be respectful here. They have agreed to help Trump and the United States get this thing back open. The United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, and Netherlands and Japan have released a joint statement expressing their readiness to contribute to appropriate efforts to ensure the safe passage of commercial shipping lanes through the Strait of Hormuz. And the reason why is because energy prices in Europe and Japan, they are really aggressively, disproportionately rising. Energy is getting increasingly expensive for them. Over here in the United States, we are energy independent. Actually, we are still selling oil on the global market. 10% of all the oil we suck up out of the ground, we ship abroad. If anything, maybe kind of, I hate to say it, the United States might be making money in this current climate. But these countries here, they are energy importers. They're buying oil and energy on the global markets. Things have gotten very expensive for them. And so I think that they have realized that, well, it's actually probably better for us to help the United States open up the Hormuz than it is to sit over here on the sidelines waiting for the U.S. to get it done on their own. Meanwhile, we are hemorrhaging money because we're having to buy oil at $150 a barrel. Once again, right now, the U.S., we've got oil at $100 a barrel because we make our own oil. So I think they've done the calculus and they've determined, yeah, let's just get this thing back open after initially being resistant. Earlier today, we heard from the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He said this, he actually backed the ongoing U.S. and Israeli airstrikes against Iran. Take a look at this.
In my contacts with allies all over NATO territory, what I'm sensing and hearing is that we all agree, as we always did, that it was crucial for Iran not to get its hands on a nuclear capability, a ballistic missile capability, and what the US is doing at the moment is degrading that capability of Iran. And I think that's very important. This is important for European security, for the Middle East. It is vital for Israel itself. Then when it comes to the Hormuz Strait, everybody agrees. This strait cannot stay closed. It has to open up again as soon as possible. This is crucial for world economy. In my context with allies are seeing is that they are intensely discussing amongst each other, with the United States and amongst each other, the best way forward to tackle this huge security issue. And let me add to that, that I'm confident that allies, as always, will do everything in support of our shared interest.
So there we have it. This is, like I said, the NATO Secretary General of NATO, a guy named Mark Rutte. He says, listen, we got to get this thing open, and now we are willing to help work with the U.S. to get it open. We have a report coming out of the United Kingdom. CBS News writes that the UK has actually sent a team of military planners to work with us Americans to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So already this is not just empty, vacuous jibber jabber. The United Kingdom, at least, they're already making plans to help get this thing open. They've sent a team of military planners to collaborate with the U.S. in the region, with presumably our CENTCOM commander, somebody else high up the food chain. What can we do? We need this thing to be open. Action is already being taken. What's more, it's not just the Europeans and Japan also. We got a massive joint statement today from the Qataris, the Azerbaijanis, the Bahrainis, Egypt, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates. What is that, like 10 different countries here from the Middle Eastern area? They have collectively today issued a massive joint statement calling on Iran to halt their attacks immediately. Halt the attacks. Folks, this is just so profound, because keep in mind, Iran's entire strategy, they've been planning this for years. The Iranian regime's strategy was to fire missiles, rockets, and drones at every single one of their regional neighbors, hoping that if they could apply enough pressure, and by pressure I mean bombs and explosions, if they could apply enough pressure on all of their regional neighbors, Kuwait, Jordan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, whatever, then maybe these countries here would then turn against the U.S. and then put pressure on the U.S. saying, okay, listen, President Trump, you got to call off the operation, call off the attack. We here in the Emirates, we are sick of having our buildings get blown up. We here in Saudi Arabia, we're sick of having our oil refineries get blown up, or whatever. Well, the Iranian strategy, folks, has completely backfired. We've got our allies in Europe and at least one over in Asia, Japan, actually willing to send military naval assets to help us open up the Strait of Hormuz. That's the big news we got. We just spoke about that. We also have statements from pretty much every single Middle Eastern country in the region saying, actually, we side with the U.S. We want to take this all the way. This psychotic regime in Iran has got to be done away with. In fact, we're calling on Iran to halt their attacks. We're not calling on the U.S. to halt the U.S. attacks. Iran, halt your attacks. It gets even crazier. This morning, a group of Arab and Islamic countries issued a joint statement, another joint statement, saying that they have the right to self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter. I kid you not. Ladies and gentlemen, all of these Arab nations in the region, they got together. I believe they had this meeting late last night. They issued the statement this morning publicly. They said, we are so sick of having drones and bombs and missiles launched into our countries that, you know what? Just, hey, everybody, let the record show we retain the right to defend ourselves against Iran under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. That's a little bit of a threat, don't you think? It's saying, hey, listen, Iran, you had better stop. Otherwise, we might be forced. You might put us in a self-defense position here. Don't put us in a self-defense position. We have another report. We hear from former CIA Director Pompeo. He talked about the Strait of Hormuz. What's it going to take to get this thing open?
Brian, I think they're preparing the conditions in the same way that it took several weeks to get all of these assets in the region to keep our soldiers, sailors, airmen safe for the attack. They've got to do the same for the Strait. So there's going to take real preparation. Timelines are what everybody wants to know, which day they're going to do this. That's impossible to know. It's a conditions-based effort. I promise you, Secretary Hegseth and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are doing the work to take down this risk. And when the moment is right, when the vast majority of capability to lay mines and present real consistent risk from missiles attacking ships, when they've taken that down sufficiently, they will do the necessary and get this strait reopened. I'm convinced they can do it. Think weeks, not days, but they are deeply, deeply aware of the need to do this. They were before the attack. It's just an awful lot of work. But I guess that's all caution, folks, Brian. The Strait hasn't been open for the last 30 years. They've been holding this over our heads for decades. Now we're finally going to clear this out in a way that we can truly get risk premiums down and reduce the risk there, not just for a few weeks or months where we're all subject to Iranian risk, but in a way that is fundamentally different for an awfully long time.
That is a great remark to make here. What he says is that, listen, the Iranian regime, they have had their clutch on the lever of the Hormuz, open, closed, open, closed. They have been threatening to do this, sort of holding it over our head for, he says, 30 years or more, for decades. And now, finally, we are removing that clutch off of the lever of the Hormuz. You would assume, I think you can logically deduct, that after that Iranian regime clutch has been taken off of this Hormuzian lever, if you will, oil prices are going to go down long term, because now not everybody is panicking that, well, we've got this psychotic regime pointing a bunch of naval mines or missiles or rockets or drones at that Hormuz. Yeah, they might be kind of letting us go through now, but that threat it has always been dangling over top of that strait. And now we're permanently going to remove that threat. That seems to be what's happening right now. That's one of President Trump's objectives. Now, we also hear from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent of the Trump administration about the Trump administration's plan to use Iran's oil against Iran. Take a look at this.
Maria, to be clear, this is a coordinated effort. We had a break the glass plan across the administration and at Treasury. We unsanctioned Russian oil. We knew that there were about 130 million barrels on the water, and we created supply that is beyond the Straits of Hormuz. So we anticipated this. We knew that there could be a temporary, and I want to emphasize temporary, choke point there, and there was 130 million barrels of floating storage. In the coming days, we may unsanction the Iranian oil that's on the water. It's about 140 million barrels. So depending on how you count it, that's 10 days to 2 weeks of supply that the Iranians had been pushing out. That would have all gone to China. In essence, we will be using the Iranian barrels against the Iranians to keep the price down for the next 10 or 14 days as we continue this campaign. So we have lots of levers. We've got plenty more that we can do.
Folks, I'm going to pause. What he's saying, oh my gosh. What he's saying is that U.S. is about to lift the sanctions on the Iranian oil that is already floating around the world's oceans, currently, generally speaking, en route to China. China has been buying Iranian oil under market cost because it's been sanctioned. They've been using a black market fleet. China's been paying pennies on the dollar for this Iranian oil. The United States, we are about to lift our sanctions on this Iranian oil that has already made its way out of the Hormuz, which will allow any country on earth to buy this Iranian oil, not just China. The Iranians then that are selling this oil, they're going to be able to sell the oil for perhaps 2 times more, make more money. They could sell it to Malaysia. They could sell it to Singapore. They could sell it to anybody they want, screwing over China and also adding more oil into the global market. That is a, dare I say, ingenious maneuver. That is an ingenious maneuver.
The largest coordinated SPR release in history, 400 million barrels, was approved last week. And some countries are going to do more. The U.S. could unilaterally do another SPR release to keep the price down. As you will have noted, WTI and its European counterpart Brent have substantially diverged over the past few trading sessions. They were trading right on top of each other last week, and this is because the U.S., thanks to President Trump in his first term, the continuing efforts here, is virtually energy independent.
Yeah.
And when President Trump says our allies should join us in a coalition along the Straits of Hormuz, that they're the ones who need this oil. The U.S., we're an oil exporter.
That is true, and everybody knows it. And now the big news of the day is that there is an international coalition that is forming to help work with the U.S. to get this Hormuz Strait reopened. Scott Bessent, in a little short segment here, Bessent is forcing China to buy oil at market price. No more discounts. That's all you need to know. That is the new policy. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say it again. This is ingenious, what Bessent is doing here at the Treasury. Bessent also went on to say, when asked, what about Carg Island? Well, Treasury Secretary Bessent says, we'll see if Carg Island eventually becomes a U.S. asset. Scott Bessent, is Carg Island the island on which 90% of Iranian oil gets shipped out and exported to the global markets? They call it Oil Island. Might this island become a U.S. asset once all of this is said and done? He says, we'll see. We'll see. In my mind, that kind of means, yeah, probably. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion here, everything that we are watching is a part of President Trump's plan to, one, shut down the Iranian regime, strengthen our economic alliances worldwide, as well as our military alliances, as we're seeing here, make some money along the way, seems to be the case, Carg Island, and of course, most importantly, put America first. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our segment here talking about this new international coalition. They've signed on. The Europeans, I'll be a little bit rude here, the Europeans caved. They capitulated. 5 days ago, they tried to talk tough. They said, I don't want anything to do with this. Sorry, USA, you're on your own. This is not our problem. President Trump said, okay, all right, if it's not your problem, if you're saying it's only our problem, then we're going to maybe just leave the Hormuz closed. We're not in a hurry to open it. Whatever. Hey, if oil prices go up, if gas prices go up, that's kind of your problem, not really our problem, because we are energy independent. You know what? Why don't we wait a week and let's see whose problem really this is? Well, about a week has gone by now, and the Europeans, they have come crawling back. They have capitulated. They've said, okay, you know what? We are willing to work with you. Okay, let's work together. What was the exact quote? They said, and I quote, this is this joint statement. And I keep saying Europeans, but Japan was also part of this as well. So Europe plus Japan, some European countries plus Japan. They said, and I quote in this joint statement, we express our readiness to contribute to appropriate efforts to ensure safe passage through the Strait. That is the quote there. That is the big quote. Now, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump, earlier this morning, must be about 2 hours ago now, President Trump spoke about whether or not we might have boots on the ground. Boots on the ground. Everybody's worried about it. I hope we don't. I hope we don't. You guys know, God forbid, I think it's, if this entire conflict ends up becoming a war on terror 2.0, 100,000 U.S. military service members deployed to the hills of Iran, I don't think anybody wants to see that, right? That's not what we're looking for. That's not what Trump is looking for. Well, take a look at what he had to say about this morning.
Do you intend to lift sanctions on Iranian oil, and do you intend to potentially put U.S. troops or more troops in the region?
No, I'm not putting troops anywhere. If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you.
I'll pause. Trump, would you deploy troops to the region? He says, no, it's not part of the plan. We're not putting troops anywhere. If I were, however, certainly I wouldn't tell you. That's what he said.
But I'm not putting troops, and we will do whatever is necessary to keep the price as low. I actually thought when I did this, look, the Dow just hit 50,000 a couple of weeks ago. They said that couldn't happen for 4 years. It wouldn't happen in my term. It's such an outrageous thing because I said it would happen. I didn't know it was going to happen that fast, but it just hit 50,000, and we did that in 1 year, not 4. S&P had just hit 7,000. They said that was even more impossible than the Dow hitting 50, and we did that in 1 year. So it was all done. Everything was going great. The economy was great. Oil prices were very low. Gasoline was dropping to, I mean, we had $1.99, $1.85. We had great everything. And I saw what was happening in Iran, and I said, I hate to make this excursion, but we're going to have to do it. And I actually thought the numbers would be worse. I thought that it would go up more than it did. But we're doing this excursion, and when it's completed, we're going to have a much safer world. And the Prime Minister agrees with me on this. She considers it to be terrible what Iran did. I think every country does, just about every country does. Iran is a serious threat to the world, to the Middle East and to the world. And everybody agrees with me. I think virtually every country agrees with me on that.
To say the minimum, yeah, of course, that's true. Yeah, I think that, I mean, guys, once again, even all of Iran's neighbors, these Islamic Middle Eastern countries, even they acknowledge, yeah, listen, those guys, the Iranian regime, they are psychotic. We got to get them out of here. We got to get them out of here. I think that Iran, this has been a rude awakening for the Iranian regime or whatever's left of the Iranian regime. I think they have realized that they have a lot fewer friends in the world, fewer friends in their own neighborhood than they had originally thought 3 weeks ago, because none of their friends have stood up for them. Every single Middle Eastern Islamic country has turned their back on them, siding with the U.S. Earlier this morning, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, he says, quote, again today will be the largest strike package yet against Iran. We're hitting them harder than ever today. We're going to set a new record. More targeted strikes, larger strike package, etc. That's coming from our Secretary of War a couple hours ago. Seems like they're already making that happen. We got an update from CENTCOM this morning. U.S. forces are destroying Iranian naval assets that threaten international shipping in and near the Strait of Hormuz. Why don't we put this one up on the big screen here, folks? Ooh, they blew that boat up. Yep. There's another. Hold up. Whoa, that was too fast. If you blink, you're going to miss it. That's the first boat, vessel, ship. There's another one. And goodbye. And goodbye. Holy hell, look at that. You know, this one here, it almost looks like this one had already taken some damage. Well, maybe not, maybe not. Anyway, they blew it up. Wow, and there must have been something explosive there because that thing just lit up like a torch. They were hiding this one under some trees. Well, would you look at that? Look at that. I'll be damned. This one wasn't even sitting in the water. They tried to hide this one underneath some trees and some brushes. Somebody they draped the trees over the side of the boat, the branches. They said, Allahu Akbar, they'll never find this one. Allahu Akbar, inshallah, they'll never find this boat. And, well, we blew it up. And actually, inshallah, we blew up the boat. I'm sorry, my Habibi, the boat is now gone. There you go. Yep, it's over. So there's that. We found it. Marco Polo. We have another one here. This is this is General Dan Kane with an update. They had a press conference this morning. He gives an update on the 2-minute little update here on the overall success of Operation Epic Fury. Take a look at this one.
U.S. CENTCOM remains on plan to achieve our military objectives and remain unrelenting in our pursuit of Iranian missile capabilities, UAV capabilities, and their Navy, and as the Secretary said, their industrial base. Each day we continue to attack deeper into Iranian territory. As reported by U.S. Central Command yesterday, the U.S. military dropped 5,000-pound penetrator weapons into underground storage facilities, storing coastal defense cruise missiles and other support equipment. These weapons are bespokely designed to get through concrete and/or rocks and function after penetrating those barriers. We continue to hunt and kill mine storage facilities and naval ammunition depots. We continue to hunt and kill afloat assets, including more than 120 vessels and 44 mine layers, and the pressure will continue. We're flying further to the east now and penetrating deeper into Iranian airspace to hunt and kill one-way attack garrisons, destroying Iran's ability to project power outside of its borders. The A-10 Warthog is now in the fight across the southern flank and is hunting and killing fast attack watercraft in the Straits of Hormuz. In addition, AH-64 Apaches have joined the fight on the southern flank, and they continue to work on the southern side, and that includes some of our allies who are using Apaches to handle one-way attack drones. In Iraq, AH-64s have been striking against Iranian-aligned militia groups to make sure that we suppress any threat in Iraq against U.S. forces or U.S. interests. And we remain focused on pursuit of any platform that Iran could field to harm Americans or our partners. Last Friday, Admiral Cooper and the CENTCOM team conducted precision strikes against more than 90 targets on Karg Island, which included all of their military-only infrastructure, which included air defenses, naval base, mine storage, and deployment facilities. And as the Secretary mentioned, we continue to strike against Iran's defense industrial base and will continue to do so.
All right, so in summary, we are just systematically dismantling every single component of the Iranian regime: the leadership structure, the storage facilities, the bunker complexes, the means with which they fire drones, missiles, and rockets, their boats, their navy, their naval mines, just like literally everything. Everything. The Basij, the IRGC. Now, we actually have some really shocking news we're about to get to, but first I want to share something with you. This morning, I've got news for you pertaining to the Iranian regime. Like I said, it seems like they're having some struggles. First, I want to share a little clip with you folks. This is our current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, testified under oath this morning about a couple things, about Iranian nuclear weapons, all types of things. Take a look at what he had to say this morning.
Does the Iranian regime have American blood on their hands since its founding in 1979?
Yes.
Has Iran plotted assassination attempts against Americans on American soil?
Yes.
Was Iran developing a nuclear weapon prior to our military action last June? And did Iran remain committed to developing a nuclear weapon in the lead up to this conflict?
Yes. So I want to clarify on that because there's been much talk about a fatwa against the development of a nuclear weapon.
Can you come back to that 1 second? Let me finish
yeah,
these.
You bet.
Okay? If left unchecked, do you think Iran would have the ability to develop missiles capable of reaching the United States?
Yes. Did
Israel force the U.S.'s hand and make us take action, as some have claimed?
No.
Director Gabbard, do you agree with the CIA director's assessment on that last question in particular? Is the Iranian regime...
There you have it. And of course, I would suspect that this line of questioning this morning, this is footage from this morning, is sort of in response to all of this, dare I say, drama pertaining to an individual named Joe Kent. We spoke a little bit about him yesterday. I believe he made an appearance on the Tucker Carlson show last night. We're not going to get into that today. I frankly have not seen that. I actually, funny story, last night I was going to try to watch it just to see what the guy had to say, and it was behind a paywall. I had to pay money to watch the damn thing. I said, okay. Maybe I'll come back another day and try to watch this thing. Maybe it's free now, but you know, I gave my pretty critical thoughts about that entire situation yesterday. I think you guys know how I feel if you were here for yesterday's show. That said, I'll to be honest with you, I'll go watch it. I'll go see what the what the hubbub is all about. Anyway, moving on. That's not the main topic of today's broadcast. We heard from Scott Bessent in a different interview this morning. Once again, this is our Treasury Secretary. We just saw a clip of him. He said this: right now, we are seeing defections at all levels in Iran. What? Defections? You mean members of the Iranian regime, the Basij forces, the IRGC, etc.? They are abandoning their posts. They are defecting is what that means. They're not showing up to work anymore. Simply put, good. That's exactly what we want to see. That's exactly what we want to see. We have another report. Bessent also said this morning in another statement, he said that the Iranian regime will probably collapse within on itself. Can you believe that? We've been sitting here for 2.5, almost 3 weeks now saying, is it going to happen? I don't know. Is it going to happen? Some days it looks more likely than others. I don't know. Bessent this morning, senior ranking member of the Trump administration, the Treasury Secretary, he said the Iranian regime is probably going to collapse in on itself. That's a big update. We also have a report coming out of, this is an Israeli news outlet, N12 News. A senior Israeli source this morning has said that the Iranian regime is in total chaos and that, quote, we want to create a breaking point. Israel plans unprecedented strikes and target eliminations in the coming days to intensify Iran's internal crisis and demonstrate to the public that it is game over for the regime. Now, Israel has already been doing this. Remember, this is maybe 5 or 6 days ago now. We had a big topic about how this war, this conflict is entering phase 2. We called it phase 2. What did phase 2 look like? What's the difference? Well, this is the phase where predominantly Israel, I believe a little bit US as well, we have been using these very small $100 or $200 drones that carry small explosives strapped to the bottom, flying them through, like literally through the streets of Tehran and various other large cities all over the country, Isfahan, Taraz, elsewhere, targeting IRGC and the Basij checkpoints. Right now, whatever's left of the Iranian regime, they are panicking. They're worried about spies on the ground. They're worried about Mossad and CIA, maybe Delta Force traveling through the country. They're worried about defectors turning on them. They're worried about armed Iranian anti-regime resistance groups. They are panicking. They're worried about airstrikes, bombs coming down. So what they've done, they've set up checkpoints all over the country. If you're driving down the road, you're going to run into a Iranian regime checkpoint. Hey, stop. Who are you? Like imagine armed men carrying guns. Stop the car. Who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? Let me see your ID. They're sussing everybody out because they're nervous. They're panicking. So it is these checkpoints that these very small drones have been targeting and blowing up. We have seen, just like, I kid you not, the footage is out there, dozens of these very small checkpoints along the roads, really meant to suppress people, suppress the Iranian people, meant to instill fear in the Iranian people. We've seen dozens of these Iranian regime checkpoints just get blown up. Little drone comes in, blows up the checkpoint. So, you know, in a way, you can almost say that the terrorists are now becoming terrorized. We are terrorizing the terrorists. Really, we've kind of flipped the tables on them. Now, folks, I want to say something real quick. If you're new to the show, man, good Lord, we've got a hell of a lot of people here today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to the show, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Welcome to the community. We're doing shows like this every single day, sometimes twice a day. This is a one-man operation. I don't have producers. I don't have editors. I just live in a little cabin out here in the woods all by myself with my wife and kids. This is a one-man show. It's just me and it's you. So I want to say thank you all very much for tuning in. Right now, we are going to get to the super chats. So let's go ahead and pull up the super chats because I would love to see what you, lovely ladies and gentlemen in the audience, have to say about today's broadcast. A little bit controversial. Like I said, hey, it's going to be a little bit controversial today. Okay. And we got through it. How was it okay? Everything okay? All right. I think at a minimum, even if you disagree with me about what I said the first half of the broadcast, at a minimum, I hope you understand. I hope you understand where I'm coming from, even if you disagree. That would be my basic request. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's pull up the super chats here because, man, I think we've got a couple of them. All right. I've got them up here. There we go. Well, let me make sure I reloaded. All right. Well, our first super chat of the day is from a lovely individual named Pizza Friday Don. Pizza sounds good. Pizza Friday Don says, 445 kilograms of enriched material. They got to go find it and dilute it. I would imagine that after all of this is said and done, after the regime has totally capitulated, it's over, the conflict is done, that at some point there is like going to have to be some type of spec ops raid, could be Delta Force, God knows who else, CIA, that goes into the country and digs into whatever nuclear bunker that enriched uranium is or was being stored in. They go in there. Word on the block is there's a plan to even bring some nuclear scientists, bring American nuclear scientists into that bunker alongside a bunch of Delta Force guys or whoever else, secure the premises and then let the scientists get in there and dilute that enriched uranium, destroy it, functionally destroy it. It's not enough to drop a bunker buster bomb on it. That doesn't actually destroy it. You have to scientifically dilute it. It's a really complex process. And so that does seem to be maybe not. Man, that was man. I don't know what's gotten into me lately. Folks, I apologize. I don't know what has got into me lately. Oh my gosh, now my blood is pumping. My adrenaline is pumping here, man. Ooh, red alert. Good Lord. Anyway, no, it's a complex process. That's probably not going to immediately happen, but at some point that is probably going to have to happen. Yeah, once everything is said and done. Now we have a couple new supporters up here on YouTube. This is from Ses Homorinchan. Did I pronounce that properly? I don't know, probably not. But ma'am, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Sorry. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very much. And another one here from Texas Ricky. Shout out the Texans. Shout out the Texans. If you're a Texan, go ahead and give me a 1. Go ahead and give me a 1 in the chat, all the Texans. We love Texas. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, sir, Mr. Texas Ricky. And we have a super chat from Old Concrete Lizard. He says, Trump may be hated by the world leaders, but he is loved by the world's people, and rightfully so. He is the unstoppable force the world has always needed for prosperity. I think what Trump is doing, he is dispensing on a global scale some much needed medicine. Oftentimes you don't want to take your medicine. It tastes bad, but you got to take it anyway. And I think that Trump is the medicine man. Trump is dispensing a lot of medicine around the world, and a lot of countries, they resist it. They don't want to take it. I don't want to take it. He says, open up, you're going to take it. And then they take it and say, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. In fact, I'm feeling a little bit better. Now I even feel better than ever. So at some point, you would think that some of these countries would just kind of stop resisting. Listen, you're just making everything harder, right? Trump is the medicine man. No, thank you very much. You're right. You're totally right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We also had a massive Rumble rant on Rumble from one of my favorite viewers. His name is Brian Ledbetter. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. That was like an hour ago now, but thank you, Brian. You're one of my favorites. I appreciate that. And I think we might have our final super chat of the day here. This is from El Chingon. El Chingon. Hey, listen, no blah blah Espanol. Hey, no blah blah Espanol. No blah blah. No blah blah Espanol. I speak American. That's all I know how to speak. But hey, listen, no, I'm kidding. Hey, thank you very much. I'm kidding. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Mr. El Chingon with the $20 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to be a wrap up for today's show. Now, I'll tell you something here. The last 2 or 3 nights in a row, there's been so much news. I've been going live in the evening also. So I don't know. We might do another evening show. No promises. If there's a lot to talk about, then we'll do it. If not, then we won't. But I will have a video. There will be a video out for you guys up here on YouTube and Rumble here in the next hour or so. But if I don't see you tonight, then I will see you tomorrow morning, everyone. Thank you all very much for tuning in. I appreciate that. El Chingon, he gifted 5. Hey, listen, gracias, mi amigo. Mi amigo, gracias para la cuatro, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. Cinco? Hey, thank you for the cinco. Thank you for the cinco. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That is going to be a wrap up for today's broadcast. I will see you folks tomorrow, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. Until then, everyone, thank you. God bless. Stay safe. Big things are happening, and we're going to be here every step of the way to break it all down. Thank you, folks. God bless.